All right, let's just dive right in. When you think wedding night, you're probably picturing something private, romantic, the quiet start to a new life. But in ancient Rome? Yeah, it was something else entirely. We're talking about a loud, very public, and frankly, a pretty bizarre ritual that had almost nothing to do with love.
And this really gets to the heart of it, doesn't it? For us, it's this deeply personal, emotional moment. For the Romans, it was the final public step in sealing a contract. The entire night was basically engineered to make sure everyone knew the deal was officially done, leaving absolutely no room for doubt later on.
This quote perfectly captures the Roman mindset. See, they just didn't build their society on feelings. Love, that was seen as impulsive, maybe even dangerous. Definitely a terrible foundation for something as serious as a family line. But contracts were solid. They were predictable. They were the very bedrock of their social order.
So marriage wasn't really about two people finding a soulmate. It was a transaction designed to create stability. It was about connecting powerful families, protecting property, and, maybe most important of all, producing legitimate heirs. So the wedding night's real job was to provide undeniable public proof that this contract was now in full effect.
But here's the thing. The ritual didn't even start at the groom's house. Nope. It began before the bride even left her childhood home, and it started with a very specific and pretty much mandatory performance. It sounds like a crazy question, right? But it's absolutely central to understanding how the Romans thought. This wasn't just a suggestion. A respectable bride was expected to put up a fight. She was supposed to cry and cling to her mother as if she was being taken completely against her will.
And this whole performance, it was doing a lot of work. It was a symbolic nod to the myth that marriage itself began with an abduction. It reassured everyone that she was virtuous and wasn't, just shamelessly running off out of desire. It was basically emotional theater, where acting reluctance was the sign of a respectable woman.
So once she was symbolically torn from her mother's arms, the wedding moved from a family drama right out into the streets, where it became a full-blown public spectacle.
And you gotta understand, this was not a quiet, dignified walk. This was a chaotic, fire-lit parade roaring through the streets. The goal was volume. It was spectacle. The louder and more public the procession, the more legitimate the marriage was considered. Silence would have suggested something was seriously wrong.
And when we say loud, we really mean it. The crowd would sing songs and shout jokes that were so vulgar that later Roman authors were literally too embarrassed to even write them down. But this had a purpose. The Romans believed that all that crude humor and loud noise would confuse and scare away evil spirits that might try to curse the new couple.
Okay, so the parade finally makes it to the groom's house. But the night is far from over. In fact, just getting inside involved one of the most spiritually dangerous moments of the whole affair, the doorway. See, to the Romans, a threshold was this supernaturally charged space, just humming with energy. For a bride to trip while entering her new home for the first time, well, that was a disastrous omen. It was seen as a sign that the gods disapproved of the marriage, a small accident that could literally haunt the couple for years. So the solution wasn't romantic, it was purely practical. The groom physically carried the bride over the threshold to eliminate any chance of that fateful misstep. Once she was safely inside, she was led to the ceremonial bed, where one final, very important symbolic act had to happen. This wasn't just any belt. The bride wore a special woolen belt that was tied in what was called the Herculean knot. Untying it was the groom's exclusive right, and that act symbolized the official transfer of authority and the beginning of his duty to produce an heir. Again, it's all about clear, symbolic actions. Now at this point, you'd think the couple would finally get some privacy. But if you're thinking that, you'd be very, very wrong. The guests were nowhere near done yet. No, the guests didn't go home. Are you kidding? They gathered right outside the bedroom door, singing, shouting, and just generally making sure there was no silence. Remember, silence was suspicious, right? So they stayed to provide a supportive and incredibly loud audience. I know this sounds absolutely horrifying to us, but the Romans saw it as a form of protection. The noise continued to ward off evil spirits, and the presence of all those witnesses confirmed that yes, the marriage was proceeding exactly as it should. Privacy was a luxury. And on this night, community and certainty were just way more important. And you'd think, okay, surely when the sun comes up, it's finally over. Nope. The scrutiny didn't even end then. The morning after was just another stage in this very public ritual designed to confirm the bride's new role.
The new bride was expected to wake up and immediately get to work, greeting the household gods, starting domestic tasks, proving she was now a contributing member of the household. And yes, this often included let's call it a discreet physical inspection by the groom's female relatives, just to verify that the marriage had in fact been consummated.
So after all of this, the fake kidnapping, the crude jokes, the crowd outside the door, it's pretty easy to just think the Romans were, well, weird. But here's the thing. All that weirdness, it wasn't an accident. It was the entire point.
Our modern traditions, they're built around ideas of love, privacy, and personal happiness. Roman rituals were built on a completely different set of values: social order, legal certainty, and the legitimacy of the next generation. Think about it. Every single bizarre tradition we've just looked at was designed for one main purpose: to remove any and every shred of doubt. Was she officially transferred to the new family? The public procession proved it. Was the contract sealed? The witnesses and the morning after inspection confirmed it. In a society built on inheritance, there could be absolutely no ambiguity. For the Romans, you can see it right here. Social stability and the legitimacy of heirs were paramount. Those were the top priorities. And personal feelings, romance, well, that was a distant and often pretty optional third. The health of their entire society depended on having clear, unquestionable family lines.
And that really is the key takeaway. These rituals were not a celebration of a couple's love story. They were a powerful social machine designed to protect the whole community from the chaos that comes from disputed inheritances and unclear lineage. The weirdness wasn't a bug. It was the system's most important feature.
Which, it leaves us with a pretty fascinating question to think about. The Romans used their rituals to eliminate any doubt about the legal and social reality of a marriage. So, what about our own modern wedding traditions? What anxieties, what doubts are they designed to solve for us?